Hi everyone, you're joining the Shared Contracts webinar. We're going to give just a few minutes for more people to join us and we'll get started here soon. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Shared Contracts webinar. My name is Adrienne Moretz, and I'll be moderating today. Just a few quick reminders before we get started. All members are muted, so if you do have a question, you can type it into the question box at any time. This webinar is being recorded, and we will post it on the SACOG website. You will also get a follow-up email with the recording. Again, send your questions into the question box at any time. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. Today, we're joined with SACOG staff and the Institute for Building Technology and Safety. My name is Adrienne Moretz, and I'm joined with Eric Johnson and Connor Peterson from SACOG and Greg Blunt. So we'll get started. Eric, go ahead.
Hi, again, good morning. Thanks everyone for joining. Really appreciate you all tuning in today. We've been doing shared services for a couple of years at SACOG on a smaller scale, but our new CEO, James Corliss, has come in and really challenged us to look at the full range of services and how we can be a better council of governments not just looking at the transportation issues that SACOG has historically focused on, but really, serving as a council of governments and assisting with all the different functions of our member cities and counties. So we really need your feedback in order to understand what would be helpful to you as cities and counties in our region. We have a good presentation set up for you today, and would love your feedback throughout the webinar and afterwards as well. And there are also, I'm sure, many other ideas that we haven't brought forward. So feel free to reach out to Connor or myself at any time, and we would be more than happy to talk to you. Just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of orientation on how we look at shared services at SACOG. So, we've really been focusing on contracting, and those of you who participate in our fuel contract, Connor will be talking about that and some other things that we're working on a little bit later. But today we're focusing on contracting with a nonprofit. IBTS has done some great work around the country supporting cities and counties on a contract basis. And so that's really kind of where SACOG is focused on shared services, but there's a whole range of things from just basic convening to even setting up new joint powers authorities or other structures. In some parts of our region, they've set up different structures to handle things like animal services. So everything doesn't necessarily even have to go through SACOG, but we're hoping to be a forum where people can come together and talk about what their needs are as cities and counties, and we can provide support. So with that,
Great, thank you, Eric. Before we turn it over to IBTS, we're going to give you a quick poll. We just want to gauge your experience with shared services and piggybacking on contracts. So we're going to launch this poll. It'll take just a minute for you to respond. Great, we have some great responses coming in. We'll leave it open for just another minute. Great, thank you. So it looks about half of the audience are really experienced and have had direct involvement with contract piggybacking, so that's really great to hear. Some of this information might be familiar to you, but we hope to share some new and exciting information, things we're working on at SACOG. So we'll have Eric introduce IBTS, and we'll turn it over.
Thanks. So as I mentioned, IBTS has worked around the country, most similar to what we're looking at potentially doing in our region, in the Kansas City region. They've worked with the Council of Governments there, the Mid-America Regional Council, to provide municipal services to cities, counties, all across their mega region there. And again, it's kind of on an opt-in basis, so based on what the needs are of the different cities and counties in the Kansas City region, IBTS is able to scale that up to meet their individual needs. So without further ado, I want to introduce Greg Blunt from IBTS. Greg?
Thanks a lot, Eric. Thanks everyone for joining. Before we get started, Andrew, you can see my screen with IBTS logo?
Yes, looks good, Greg. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, thanks everyone for joining. My name is Greg Blunt. I'm the Senior Manager with the Institute for Building Technology and Safety, otherwise known as IBTS. I've been doing this now for the past 11 years with IBTS, setting up and discussing local government solutions throughout the United States. So without further ado, we'll get moving. A little bit about IBTS is that we are indeed a 501c3 company, nonprofit organization. That just simply means that we don't focus on profits. We focus more on the mission, more so than profits. We don't have stockholders that are demanding profits to be focused on. See, our board of directors is a unique set of a group of organizations It is the Council of State Governments, International City Managers Association, National Association of Counties, the National Governors Association, and the National League of Cities. They all send representatives to sit on our board of directors, and they kind of guide us throughout our growth of our organization and listening to the pain points that each organization and each federal, state, and local governments may be experiencing at the local level. Who is IBTS? Well, our roles that we serve are city managers, project managers, architects, engineers, building officials, permit technicians, disaster recovery folks, just about anything in that built environment that government deals with. IBTS has those type of individuals on staff delivering those types of services. And what's unique about IBTS is we do function as master code professionals. We back up those roles with actual certifications that are needed to function in that. So IBTS is huge believers in education and keeping our staff knowledgeable in their career fields, especially as technology changes and new things come out. We stay advanced and on the cutting edge of those certifications. A little bit about what we do. IBTS as a whole, we do provide some state and federal programs. We work a good bit with HUD and FEMA. We've worked with numerous states, Louisiana, Texas, Alabama, Kansas, Missouri, California, on different programs that they have. If they're having struggles or some pain points, then we're able to come in and help find some of those solutions and put them in place for them. Also, my division that I work out of is local government solutions. So it is a combination of state and local government solutions where we can deploy services and even some products in some instances out to make those pain points go away and solve some solutions there. We do provide education and training in code enforcement and building codes. We do some consulting services as well as far as safety. We've got a project that we've worked on with the National Archives looking at the safetiness of their shelving. We look at compliance risk management. We have technology services that involve some hardware and software. We can actually come into a city and do a complete city network analysis and look at warranties and hardwares that are about to go out of date and recommend updates and security measures to protect the data. We're also Energy Solutions Leadership. We have a division. We're one of the largest solar panel inspection companies in the United States, doing thousands of inspections a month. We also run quality assurance programs as well as disaster preparedness and recovery programs that we'll discuss in just a little bit. A little bit about our experience. It's one thing to talk about the services that we provide. There's a different story when you come into the experience side of things. What you see on your screen now is a sample listing of some of our customers. It's by no means a complete listing. You can see at the very top two there, we are working currently with California Fire Marshal's office. We are currently building permitting software for their systems that tracks all of their work orders on all the projects that are being built in California, as well as a licensing database of all the sprinkler system guys, the pyro folks, and fireworks individuals. And what we've done with CAL FIRE is make sure that the two databases are linked together. That way, if someone tries to pull a permit that they don't have a current license for, the system stops everything and asks a few questions about when can we get new insurance or when can you get your license updated. We're also in the process of working with CAL FIRE of doing plan reviews for them on some of their projects. We're in the process of somewhere in the neighborhood of about 20 to 40 a week. It depends upon CAL FIRE's workload of actually doing processes with them. I'm not going to hit them all, but you'll see some there that you may be familiar with. The Mid-America Regional Council, that's another COG that serves the Kansas City area. We work with state leagues such as the Missouri Municipal League, the Oklahoma Municipal Association, Louisiana Municipal Association, several states, some big cities in there, Houston, Galveston. We're actually on the ground right now working with New York after their disaster, this Hurricane Superstorm Sandy. There are a couple in there that I want to highlight for you. The city of Guymon, Oklahoma, and the city of Central Louisiana. These are two cities that are completely privatized, and IBTS provides all city services in those two cities. So we handle very large, complex projects And then we handle very small, simple projects such as, something like in Sand Springs, Oklahoma, where they just need a couple code enforcement inspections a year that need to be handled when their staff goes on vacation or someone's out sick. So that's the beauty of these type of services, is that we can push all this stuff together and work big cities as well as small cities. Some other service examples, we were responders to Hurricane Katrina, Ike, Gustav, Sandy, and Harvey recovery in a disaster recovery division. We was also on the ground after Louisiana's 1,000-year flood recovery, issuing over 5,000 permits in approximately 4 weeks. And that's while our own offices had about 3 feet of water in our offices there in central Louisiana. We're also on the ground with the Washington, D.C.'s Metro Rail extension, where they're extending the Metro Rail from Washington, D.C. out to the Dulles International Airport. It's an extremely complex project involving federal government, the Department of Justice, Homeland Security, all the way down to the state of Virginia is involved in it, as well as each county and each city that Metro Rail station flows through. And it's IBTS's job that we have to coordinate all those codes and all those reviews to ensure that everything is being satisfied on federal, state, and local level. We have been HUD's Manufactured Housing Program Quality Assurance Monitor for the last 20 years. So every manufactured housing facility in the United States, we audit them. We also audit every state agency to make sure the quality programs there are coming along properly. In addition to that, we handle and monitor and control all of HUD's labels that exist on each home. We control that and monitor that and track the funding for it, as well as all of the plans and designs for each mobile home out there. FEMA inspections we're doing currently as well there, disaster recovery in response to the flooding in Texas and Florida. Some of this we've already kind of touched on, IT infrastructure management upgrades, the National Archives shelving quality assurance review, and then down we serve in small cities such as Wood Heights, a population of 750 people. What this translates to is IBTS has handled over 10 million inspections in the last several years. Regional services approach. What I want to do here is just take about a 10 or 15 second, maybe a 30-second pause, just to give everyone a little bit of time to maybe plug in some questions that they may want to plug into the chat and send those across over to SACOG, who they're going to compile those. So I'm just going to go silent here just for a minute and give you an opportunity to plug in some questions if you do have those.
Thank you, Greg. Again, just type your questions into the question box and we'll go review those throughout the webinar.
Okay, moving on. Regional services approach. Why local government solutions? If you are to take and look at what SACOG is doing and many other COGs around the United States are doing, they're starting to realize that joint services together is much, much more economical and efficient to operate. By meaning that is setup and operational costs are not duplicated. So if you have a large county and several cities within inside it, setting up a common building department or a one-stop shop that serves the entire county, as well as many cities, it reduces those costs down. However, in doing so, you have to be careful in making sure that each local jurisdiction retains their autonomy with their finances and control and approval of projects. Another aspect of this also comes into play was a lesson learned that came out of Louisiana after Hurricane Katrina. Was Louisiana implemented building codes immediately after Katrina and required a building official in every jurisdiction, no matter the size. Well, obviously, Louisiana is rural, and some parishes or counties, they may build 2 or 3 homes a year, and they just simply couldn't sustain the cost of having a building official. So what IBTS is, we grouped them together in regions And that way we could plug in one building official that's fully certified, fully engineered, one unit of fuel, one unit of vehicle oil change, etc. And they served a larger common area, which made it much more palatable and affordable for each jurisdiction to get the services that was being mandated by the state. The citizens do stay local for services. They don't necessarily have to come to the county center or the county seat to work with the one-stop shop or the one area. A side benefit out of this thing is that contractors, they don't really concern themselves with jurisdictional lines. They want to work in whatever areas they can to grow their business. When you put together a regional approach, it allows that to take place because you start to get not only uniform codes, but you get uniform enforcement. By doing this, you start to work into a manner that building departments come off of the general fund and they become self-sustaining. To put in a local government solutions regional approach, it does not require mutual intergovernmental agreements between a city and a county. The best way that we've had our experience is putting it together is through a master agreement with the COG and then just do cooperative purchasing agreements off of there. It does provide economy of scale and significant cost savings. Some potential regional service offerings we've got listed up here on the screen is the planning and zoning services, building department services, GIS. A lot of people may refer to those as community development services. You can also throw in and look at fee and feasibility studies on a city or at a regional basis and what a several county area is looking at and how the fees are different and why they're different. You can also regionalize public works, streets, parks, and recs, putting all that stuff, especially community development, into a one-stop regional services. So imagine if a new Walmart or Target is coming into your area, they have one place that they go to that handles their entire development process, including what they need to do to get water, what they need to do to get sewer, how do they connect, what does the fire situation look like. So a one-stop shop that handles all of that development aspect of it, including those utility components of it. A part of that in doing a regional service is making sure that your ordinances and your drivers behind everything is modernized. By doing that, you can implement software that helps drive a one-stop or regional approach. Now, obviously, we can implement online permitting software and contractor business licensing software, but if your processes are not clean and modernized, then your software will just reflect a red tape process, if you will, there. So our recommendation is to look at ordinances and clean that process up first before you implement software, so that the software is streamlined as well. Another regional service offering that is very popular is a customer service call center that's coupled with city infrastructure LiDAR services or surveys that can analyze your entire city and tell you what age your stop signs are. They'll come down the street. It's almost like a Google vehicle, and study all your cuts and study all your potholes and street signs and give you back some feedback information, an itemized list of the age of everything, what the replacement costs are, and basically what the report comes out as is you now have a prioritized capital improvement plan that's not political. It's actually based on the age of your infrastructure. How does that tie into a customer service call center? Well, your customer service call center is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week live voice answering system that's local to your jurisdiction. It's not someone, Verizon Center across the other side of the country. When the call comes in, an electronic work order system is implemented, and that work order hits, and it's notified to the council or the county ward members or the city member that needs to be notified of that someone has reported a pothole or whatever needs to be fixed. These work orders are pushed through, and now it becomes a back-end management program that you can track the performance of your work crews. Why did it take 3 guys and $10,000 to fix that pothole? We're tracking the hours that it takes, all the materials that it takes, And that becomes a process that you can analyze and look at why it's taking the amount of resources that it is. Once that pothole is fixed or whatever it may be, a call, an actual voice phone call goes back to the citizen, or you can set it up where it's just an email, goes back to that citizen and notifies them that the work order is complete and to let us know if there's anything else that needs to be done. In addition to the call to the center, it goes back to the council person and notifies them that this work order has been complete and that the citizen is aware of it as well. So it's a full tracking system, a personalized voice that enters all the information in, and it's tracking the cost. It's a back-end management system to know why Public Works is spending the information that they need to. It also is a transparent system that spits out monthly reports with your KPIs or your key performance indexes to let you know how many work orders came in and what percentages were complete. This is just a simple map of regional services approach, how a COG, multiple cities, and IBTS can work together to benefit citizens. It's an a la carte approach, so one city may decide they just want to have all of their ordinances reviewed, a fee study done, and software implemented by, within 6 months. The next city may want more advanced stuff. They may need their building department revitalized, and they want GIS implemented and additional stormwater services and some customer call services. So in a regional services approach that's set up properly, you'll have the ability to choose a la carte from the services. We even have the ability to select within those services. And what I mean by, as an example, we have some cities that are very, very strong in residential building plan reviews and inspections, but they don't have staff that handles their commercial projects. They'll contract that out specifically to IBTS, that we handle all their commercial projects or large apartment complexes or whatever it may be. So it's not like you have to sign up for all services. It's you pick and choose the services that you need, and it is specific to each individual jurisdiction and their specific pain points. Our unique approach to it is kind of what I was just describing about, is we align, and our mission statement aligns with local governments to develop safer and smarter communities, more streamlined departments. Yet at the same time, we're aligned with the developers and builders to turn projects around very, very quick. We want to figure out a way to get that permit issued as quickly as possible so that they can get to building, because we understand time is tax dollars, and in their pocket, it's interest when they have to take out their loans. So we are not known as a quote-unquote no company. We are known as a yes company. And what that means is we figure out a way to say yes, but yet still keep the jurisdiction in full compliance with all the ordinances and regulations that they have set down, as well as state and federal mandates that's come down from those areas as well. So that's where the expertise comes in, and knowing all of the ordinances and regulations and understanding them and how they connect together and figuring out that way to say yes. It does allow us to focus on services, not necessarily profits. That means we partner with governments and COGs to make this a unique approach to delivering services. We're not focusing on, I don't have that board of directors out there demanding 30% profit margin. We have a board of directors that their interest is your interest, and that is how are we serving our citizens. On all of IBTS's staff, we train them, we put them through leadership training, we put them through customer service training, and they have to understand the IBTS heart of the matter, and it is services. A point to that is, on all of IBTS's employees' performance appraisals, nowhere in our performance appraisals does it ask how much revenue did we generate for IBTS. Our performance appraisals ask, what did we do to benefit the citizens? What did we do to make government run better, smarter, faster? How did we relieve a burden of a city manager or mayor or council member? That's where our performance appraisal focuses at, because that's where the heart of IBTS is serving our communities. By doing that, we remain flexible in all of our services. Excuse me. Some of our goals is reducing government risk by updating ordinances and regulations and policies, and making sure those are updated so that it's clear direction to staff that may need so. So we've got an internal SOP, standard operating policy direction. We also have an external public bulletin to make sure that anything that's been changed in the policy level is reflected back to the citizens so they can see it. Maintaining transparent reporting methods. In many instances, when IBTS is providing any type of accounting type services, we will set up a mirror accounting system right alongside the government's accounting system and give the government access to our accounting system, such as that we have done in Guymon, Oklahoma. We guarantee turnaround times with all of our plan reviews, as well as many other of our services. We want to make sure that we're delivering, so we set up performance metrics. And the way we set those performance metrics up on a regional level is we work with the Council of Governments as well as each local municipality while the master agreement is being established to establish those performance metrics. Some of them could be, how quickly do we want plan reviews turned around? Is it a 5-day? Is it a 10-day time period? Another aspect of how many rings does the phone take to before it's answered if we're in utility billing and working in some issues there. So we establish those items and put them into play and put them into writing. Our regional service goal is to have reliable data protection and security and non-biased capital improvement plan development. With IBTS, one thing that we are paramount about is protecting data. We do send and transfer hundreds of thousands of dollars a year back and forth between IBTS and HUD, as well as data. And currently in New York City, we're moving somewhere in the neighborhood of about 40,000 to 50,000 documents a week between IBTS and the city of New York. And we have to make sure that that's protected from individuals that may want to hack into systems. So we've talked about services and what can be done. So what are some of the benefits? So what are some of the things that actually have come out of regional services? In the instance of complete city services, the city of Guymon, Oklahoma, after they implemented services, they saved $1.2 million off of their budget in year one. So this is a process of IBTS running the city, analyzing, and not decreasing services, but actually adding services, additional things that they were doing, and actually adding staff, and we was able to save $1.2 million off of it just through efficiencies of staffing properly, through efficiencies of software and technology to make things run a little bit smoother and quicker. Some city department services, we reduced permits to 4 days rather than 4 weeks. We've issued a permitting system in one city hall that's completely online, and contractors have the option of not coming into city hall. One data infrastructure upgrade is that the data is now saved online and backed up in a cloud that's protected rather than on jump drives. This was a huge risk with Freedom of Information Request Acts that a city employee had the information on a jump drive rather than on city records or city servers. Another item there, we do lost revenue discovery. We've had individuals, IBTS staff, that found and audited water bills and found commercial customers not paying water bills for a couple of years. Also, another aspect that IBTS does is human resource management. We are known for putting people in the right places to match their skill sets. We also bonus all of our staff based on customer service, not revenue. So if they perform well and they do exceptional in the aspect of delivering a citizen improvement area, those employees will be bonused based upon that. We also bonus our employees based upon additional certifications. So when they go out and they get that new Microsoft certification, there's a bonus implemented for that. If they go out and get a new water treatment certification, there's bonuses for that. And in instances when they get enough certifications that it generates a new title, then the pay increase comes into place as well as a larger bonus. We do provide our Disney leadership training to our employees there in Guymon, Oklahoma, and it has turned things around there tremendously. One aspect of having friendly building officials, having those guys on the ground to say yes rather than no, is one contractor saved $250,000 in tax credits by a building official just having the ability to work with him and get the certificate of occupancy issued on time rather than after a deadline. So what are some of the next steps? Some of the next steps in developing a regional approach is to understand your citizens' pain points. What are your complaints coming into your city or your county? What are those looking like? Are they centered around some of your governance pain points or some of your own stress factors? Is it human capital or human relation issues? You've got employees that are underperforming. Does it evolve around a process that's long and drawn out and you have developers that are complaining about it? Is it because utility billing is not proper and individuals are being overbilled for their water bills? Is there political stress inside the city? So understanding these pain points and how it relates to services or products being delivered in the city, need to understand those and kind of walk through some of those things. How are we approaching this next with SACOG? We are planning to come back in January, somewhere around mid-January 2018, to start visiting with cities that are interested in collecting this data on what your pain points are. We're going to compile all that data, analyze it, and report back to SACOG on what this information is and where are possible areas that the compiled data represents needs to be services pushed out. Out of that, we'll develop a master agreement, and that master agreement is between IBTS and SACOG, and then each city that decides to join in or purchase off of that master agreement, we call it a service agreement. Some of you may decide to call it a cooperative purchasing agreement or something of that nature. But that's the general discussion of how to move from the next steps of, do we need to implement these services? What are those services look like? How should they be reflected into a master agreement? And then how does that jurisdiction sign up to have those services delivered? The master agreements and service agreements are, they are not restrictive in nature, they are permissive in nature. Meaning if you say, well, we need you to handle our streets and roads, in the agreement, it will not say that we're going to stripe, 27 miles a year and we're going to clean 42 miles a year. It will say something along the nature of IBTS is going to handle all of the street issues that come about. If that means we have to stripe 50 miles a year, then that's the way it will be. So don't think of a master agreement as restrictive. Think of it as more permissive to get the work done rather than focusing on the details of the minor, nuts and bolts of things of that nature. Next up, I'm going to pause again for questions and discussion. So if you have some more questions that you want to push across through chat, I'm going to pause and turn it back over to SACOG.
Great, Greg. Thank you for that great presentation and overview. You really covered a lot of topics I think are of interest to our members. We do have actually a good amount of questions, Greg, most of them directed to you. There's a lot of discussion about the differences between our jurisdictions. We have a very diverse region. We have a lot of urban versus suburban versus rural areas. So could you talk about how your services kind of differ across those different entities and what that looks like?
Sure. So this is very common with COGS, is to having dense areas and then rural areas. The way we deploy it, we would look in that initial survey where we come out and visit with numerous jurisdictions. We would always check and categorize what the requirements are of staff. So do they need X amount of certifications, how many years experience, and we compile that data to make sure that if we deploy out a building official, he has the highest certifications that's needed in that area, and that way when he does move into a rural area, he's covered no matter what. So we deploy staff based upon the maximum need or the greatest need, and that way when a smaller jurisdiction has a call or a need that they have, we are staffed ready to provide that need.
Great, thank you. We have another question coming in. How does your regional differ from, offering a more direct service to a county when you're offering these types of consolidated services to your local jurisdiction?
Okay. How does it differ? The primary difference is the level of effort and focus. So if a dense area or an urban area has a need for 10 people, then we staff up specifically for those 10 people. And the rural area that may be outside that only has a need for a part-timer, we track that individual and we accord and we set off the time that they need to go over and service those rural areas. So it really becomes a matter of human management and managing schedules. But in each instance, what we're able to do as needs increase, then we staff up to meet those needs. In some instances, and again, this goes back to SACOG and a conversation that would have to take place with them. If it's a very large area and a very large jurisdiction, and their needs start to rise, such as the city of Guyman, where we have a staff of 85 individuals there that are providing complete city services, everything in the city except the public safety, which is police, fire, ambulance, airport, and the swimming pool. What happens at that point in the game, the risk increases pretty significantly, and insurance items come into question, and then we have to have conversations with SACOG. Does it stay under the master agreement? Is that something the COG is interested in, or do we break it out and push it into a standalone agreement directly between IBTS and that one individual jurisdiction? But in all cases, a project management book is built for each jurisdiction that signs up, so we keep everybody's information separate that needs to be separate.
Great, Greg. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to turn it back over to SACOG staff. Connor from our staff will be giving you kind of an overview of the existing agreements that we have here at SACOG, and then we'll address some more questions at the end. Connor?
Thanks, Adrian. So as mentioned, thanks, Greg, for giving a great overview. IBTS represents a great future opportunity. I'm going to be walking through a little bit more what we have available now. So we have a couple contracts available, as well as we'll be actually showing you how to navigate through the master agreement, sub-agreement, piggyback process. And also throughout, I'll also be pointing over to our website, which has a lot more resources on our contracts and available resources. So the first contract that's available is our joint fuel and lubricants contract. And to give you a little bit more background with how this was established, we actually distributed a survey out to our region and to all of our membership, asking them to summarize what they purchased within a year in the way of different fuels. And then at that point, we pooled everything together and we established a procurement working group. And with that working group, we actually went through and drafted the RFP and executed the final contract. And so they helped out with selecting the final vendor, which was Hunt & Sons, who is a Sacramento-based company. And I will mention that cities, counties, special districts, all have the ability to piggyback onto this contract. So you would work through our master agreement and sub-agreement. I'll mention that a little bit more as when I touch on the piggyback process. So this contract was established in December of 2014, and it was an initial 3-year agreement with 2 one-year renewal options into 2019. We've just executed the first renewal through 2018. This next year, we're going to be evaluating, taking a look. Most likely, we'll be doing some outreach if you're within procurement to get a better feel where we head in 2019 and moving forward. The commodities available as listed are your basic fuels, A few that I definitely want to highlight, though, are our card lock, which is a little bit more tailored for some of the smaller jurisdictions. And we're also really proud of recently bringing on renewable diesel through an amendment. So that was at the end of 2015, and really had a big help from Sacramento County. They pushed this effort, as we're trying to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and do more for the environment. This actually, we're especially proud of renewable diesel because the margin or the pricing is matched to regular diesel. This is actually a better rate than you'll see from the state, as theirs, I think, has got a bit of a price increase to that base of diesel. So we're really proud of that, and we'll be interested to see in the coming years what that pricing looks like. But if you would like more interest in this contract, you can feel free to reach out to me, and I'll mention that more a little bit as we move forward. The other contract that we have available is our joint HR services or human resource services. This was also done in a similar format to our fuel contract, where we established some working groups, or we actually went out to jurisdictions to kind of get a better feel what specific services are interested for having a cooperative contract. And then at that point, those who were especially interested, we created a specific working group and went through the RFP process, and as well as the contractor selection. And so that final contractor was Koff & Associates, and it was executed in November of 2015 through 2018, also with additional one-year renewal. A little bit more about Koff. They're based out of Berkeley, so they're another local vendor. And actually, also with this contract, it's available beyond just the SACOG region, which is something that we're also proud of in that sense. And so the services that are available are both complete and individual classification and compensation studies and updates, which is probably the meat of the contract, and really where we heard feedback from our region and HR managers that it would be really beneficial to have a cooperative contract available, as well as classification audits and a variety of on-call human resource services. Those include recruitment, non-legal investigations, change management, and more. And all of this is also listed on our website. Here is a little process flow that shows kind of how the piggyback process works. So first step would be, as a possible participating agency, would be to select the service or commodity that you're looking into. So that could be human resource services, fuel, working with IBTS on building code enforcement or some form. And at that point, you can either go to the vendor, to us, or to our website to look into this. So you have three different means of kind of looking to procure some form of service or commodity. At that point, we then send over a copy of the final contract, as well as the sub-agreement and pricing. So one thing I will note, that pricing is generally not listed on our website. You'd have to go through us or the vendor to receive that, just because we don't necessarily want other vendors out there cherry picking on pricing off of our website. From there, you can then actually work directly with the vendor to discuss and finalize scope. With the example of fuel, it's a little bit easier. It's more just deciding which specific locations you would want to distribute to. With human resource services, it can go a little deeper, and you can actually have some form of negotiation with the vendor, and there's a little bit of flexibility on what you finalize as the scope. We try and leave our final contract pretty open, and I would imagine as well with IBTS there would be a wide range of services based on the eventual feedback and the master agreement that's set in place. From that point, you take the sub-agreement, which is a 2-page agreement and is that service agreement, as Greg had mentioned, and you can take both the contract and the sub-agreement and pricing and take it through your board or council and enact and then execute. And from that point, you can begin the work. You work directly with the vendor. The billing all works directly with the vendor. We're basically a side party in that way. We're kind of a third party. And if you have any questions regarding the contract or anything ongoing, we work within contract administration to enact amendments, or like I mentioned with renewable diesel, how we try and be reactionary based on the feedback for those who are utilizing the contract at that point. I will mention that within the website, it talks a little deeper into these how-to steps beyond just this. And speaking of that, here is our website where we have all of our contract documents as well as contact information for both us and the vendor. It includes amendments, sub-agreement, as well as that how-to process. And ongoing, we're going to be working on providing more consistent communication to our membership and to departments as we begin to bring on more varieties of contracts. Right now, we're looking at also a contract for a cloud-based budget platform. So that's something that we'll be communicating more on in the future, and we may end up doing some form of regional demonstration and or feedback session similar to this webinar. And I will also mention again that IBTS, they have plans to come out in mid-January to get more direct feedback on some of the services that you may be interested in and that they discussed today. So this is, we're taking the steps to look at and make sure that this is a beneficial service for our membership and that we can keep going from here. But other than that, I think that is the end of today, and we have a final poll that actually is feedback for some of the services that Greg had described earlier, and so it should we'll wait a minute or so, and you can select all that apply here. So if you think that your agency may need more help here, then so we'll let that sit for a second.
Great for your responses, everyone. We'll leave it open for just another minute. Okay, it looks like we have some really great responses coming in. So about 40% of you are interested in public works, streets, parks, and recreation. Another 63% said you were interested in building code services. Another 40% in planning and zoning services. Over 60% in IT infrastructure and system assessments, and 25% in others. So that's really great feedback, and we'll take that and discuss it with IBTS. Do want to mention that we have about 10 minutes remaining in the webinar, so we're going to hold on here and answer any more questions that you might have. If you do have questions, feel free to type them into the question box, and we'll answer them. You can always visit our website, SACOG.org, or go to IBTS.org to learn more about their services. So before we close out, we'll give you a few more minutes to ask your final questions. Okay, it doesn't look like we're having any more questions come in. We'll leave the webinar open for just another minute. As a friendly reminder, this webinar is being recorded and we will post it on the SACOG website. At sacog.org, you can also find the contact information for Connor and Eric from our staff, and you can visit IBTS.org to find Greg's contact information. They're also on the screen above you. Again, we'll leave the webinar open for a few more minutes to answer any of your final questions. Okay, Greg, looks like we do have a question, and it's directed to you. What the differences in needs of a region like ours with many different aspects, rural, urban, and suburban environments, how would you go about recruiting the best employees to represent those needs? Would you set up an office here? How does that typically work in regions that you've been in before?
Yeah, sure. So that's a great question. And yes, we actually set up offices in the regions that require our services. As far as recruiting staff, a lot of people can recognize it with pipeline welders. These guys go out on the field and do their job for 9 months out of the year, and then they go on vacation for 2 or 3 months. Some of our inspectors and plan reviewers function under the same disguise. They come in and fill in needs as they need to. So we have those type of staff that are semi-retired, and they'll work 9 months. We actually just had one gentleman that come up out of Honduras, and he worked for us for about 18 months to get a project up and running. So we have staff that's temporary like that. The more permanent staff that say for the Sacramento area, we would actually recruit staff locally, as well as in the intermediate, bring your own staff in that's fully certified and insured to provide the services from around the United States. We keep a database listing of these type of plan reviewers and inspectors that can do these type of jobs that are willing to move to Sacramento and become a part of the community. So it's kind of a threefold approach. We find the intermediate folks to stand up the office. We find staff that are willing to move to Sacramento, or staff that are already located there. And if the need be, we also provide and look for new incoming staff, an individual that may not have a certification, to hire him on and bring him up through the ranks to get his full certification. So it's a full-on approach of various avenues depending upon the exact needs of the area. So intermediate, permanent, and then the folks that come in and set the project up.
Greg, thank you again. We really appreciate that, and thank you for discussing all of the aspects of your services, including the a la carte approach and your scalability, and really the diverse set of services that you offer. So on behalf of myself, Eric, and Connor at SACOG, and Greg, we want to thank you for participating in the webinar today. We'll be sending you a follow-up email with the recording soon, as well as it being available on the SACOG website. So thank you everyone for participating, and have a great day.